He took his mistress to escape his wife, convinced she'd never find out. But one photo on social media was enough to blow everything open. That night, his wife walked in, not with anger, but with undeniable presence. What followed wasn't a scene. It was quiet, elegant destruction. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. I promise that this will be the best story you will hear in your life. The golden dress still hung in its garment bag, untouched since Emma had brought it home 3 weeks ago. She ran her fingers along the silky fabric, remembering the excitement she'd felt when she purchased it for the charity gala, an event that never happened for her because Michael had called at the last minute with the same tired excuse, an unavoidable business meeting. Emma Harrington stood in her walk-in closet, surrounded by designer clothes that told the story of a successful marriage to one of Boston's most prominent financial advisors. From the outside, their brownstone in Beacon Hill and their summer home in Cape Cod painted the picture of perfection. Michael's firm managed portfolios for the city's elite, while Emma had built her own reputation in hospital administration, recently completing her MBA with honors, despite Michael's initial reluctance to support her career advancement. Her phone buzzed on the dresser, a text from her best friend, Sophia. "Check Caroline Walsh's Instagram stories, now." Emma's stomach tightened as she opened the app. Caroline, the wife of Michael's business partner, had posted from the same charity gala Emma had been meant to attend, the one Michael had claimed was cancelled due to low attendance. In the background of Caroline's selfie, partially obscured but unmistakable, was Michael in his navy suit, standing close to a woman with cascading auburn hair wearing a revealing red dress. The woman's face was turned away from the camera, but her hand rested possessively on Michael's arm. "You deserve better than this," Sophia texted again. "I've been telling you for months." Emma sat on the edge of their king-sized bed, breathing deeply to steady herself. This wasn't the first sign. The late nights at the office, the sudden business trips, the new cologne, the password on his phone that hadn't been there during their first 7 years of marriage, the emotional distance that had grown between them, turning their once passionate relationship into a carefully choreographed performance of domestic harmony. "I'm not sure what you mean," Emma replied, her fingers trembling slightly as she typed. Even now, she found herself protecting him out of habit. Her phone rang immediately. "Stop it, Em." Sophia's voice was firm. "You've been making excuses for him since that conference in Chicago last fall, the receipt for women's perfume that wasn't yours, the credit card charges at restaurants you've never been to, the weekends he's working but his office building's parking garage shows no record of his car." "You've been investigating my husband?" Emma asked, a hint of defensiveness in her voice despite knowing her friend was right. "Someone had to. You've been too busy trying to save everyone at that hospital while your marriage is flatlining." Sophia had never been one to sugarcoat things. As Boston's most sought-after divorce attorney, she had seen this pattern countless times. The woman in red is Olivia Mercer. She's the new marketing director at Callahan Group, the same client Michael has been working late with for months. Emma walked to the window overlooking the Charles River. Autumn had painted the trees in brilliant shades of orange and red, a stark contrast to the grey clouds gathering above. She thought about the dinner they had shared last night. Michael checking his phone every few minutes, barely listening as she talked about the healthcare initiative she'd developed for underserved communities. He had been physically present, but emotionally absent for so long that she had almost forgotten what genuine connection felt like. "What are you going to do?" Sophia asked after a long silence. Emma's gaze fell on her reflection in the window. At 36, she still possessed the elegant beauty that had first caught Michael's attention at a fundraiser a decade ago. Back then, she had been working as a hospital administrator, passionate about healthcare equity, while he had been the rising star at his firm, charming and ambitious. They had fallen in love quickly, dreaming of building something meaningful together. Somewhere along the way, his ambitions had eclipsed their shared dreams, and she had found herself shrinking to accommodate his growing ego. "I don't know yet," Emma replied honestly. After hanging up, Emma opened her laptop and accessed their shared calendar, Something Michael had forgotten she could see. There it was. Annual Financial Leaders Summit, Ritz-Carlton, scheduled for this Friday evening. The most prestigious gathering in Boston's financial world, where reputations were cemented and deals were made. Michael had mentioned it casually last week, claiming he would attend alone because it would be boring shop talk. She opened the event website and saw that spouses were not only welcome but expected to attend. She checked her email and found the original invitation, addressed to both of them, which Michael had archived without mentioning to her. Emma opened their closet again and removed the golden dress from its protective covering. The sophisticated gown with its subtle shimmer had been chosen for the charity event Michael had steered her away from, where he had appeared with Olivia instead. She held it against herself, looking in the mirror. Unlike Olivia's flashy red dress, this gown spoke of understated elegance. It represented who Emma truly was: dignified, intelligent, graceful. She hung the dress prominently at the front of her closet and made a decision. The summit would not only be attended by Boston's financial elite, but also by board members from several hospitals and healthcare organizations, people who might recognize her work rather than seeing her merely as Michael Harrington's wife. People who might value her contributions to healthcare policy more than her ability to play the perfect corporate spouse. Emma reached for her phone and dialed a number. "Dr. Roberts? It's Emma Harrington. I've been considering your offer to join the hospital board's strategic planning committee." She paused, listening. "Yes, I know the first meeting coincides with the Financial Leaders Summit. Actually, that works perfectly. My husband and I will both be attending." After ending the call, Emma opened her dresser drawer and removed a small velvet box she had hidden months ago. Inside was the evidence she had been collecting: receipts, photographs, hotel confirmations, text message screenshots. Each item documenting Michael's betrayal in clinical detail. She had been gathering them not out of vindictiveness, but out of self-preservation, a voice inside telling her that someday she might need to protect herself. Emma closed the box and returned it to its hiding place. Then she made another call, this time to her own bank account, one Michael knew nothing about, where she had been depositing her own salary instead of combining it with their joint finances as she had done for years. The account that represented her first steps toward independence, taken long before she had conscious evidence of his infidelity. As evening approached, she heard Michael's key in the door. She closed her laptop, straightened her posture, and prepared to play her role in their ongoing performance for now. But something had shifted inside her. The woman who would greet him tonight was not the same one he had left this morning. That woman had been slowly disappearing, making herself smaller to accommodate his growing deceptions. The woman who waited for him now was beginning to remember her full height. Olivia Mercer admired her reflection in the hotel mirror as she applied another coat of lipstick. The red dress she'd chosen for tonight's Financial Leaders Summit was bold, perhaps too bold for a work event, but she hadn't spent the last 6 months carefully cultivating her relationship with Michael Harrington to blend into the background now. "How much longer are you going to be?" Michael called from the bedroom of the suite he'd booked at the Ritz-Carlton, just 2 floors below where the summit would take place. "We should arrive separately, but not an hour apart." Olivia rolled her eyes. His insistence on discretion was becoming tedious. "Almost ready," she called back, taking a selfie for her Instagram where she'd been crafting a carefully curated image of success. The caption read, "Preparing to network with Boston's financial elite. Jesus' career goals, Jesus' women in finance." No mention of her married date. At 32, Olivia had spent her career chasing the kind of status and security that had eluded her growing up in a struggling single-parent household. Her marketing role at Callahan Group was just another stepping stone. Michael represented everything she wanted: success, connections, stability. The fact that he was married was an inconvenient detail she'd learned to compartmentalize. When she emerged from the bathroom, Michael was adjusting his tie, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. She noticed, as she always did, the framed photo he still carried in his wallet, visible on the nightstand where he'd emptied his pockets. A younger Michael and his wife at some corporate event years ago. Emma Harrington, with her natural elegance and genuine smile, looked nothing like Olivia with her calculated glamour. "You're bringing her photo to our hotel room?" Olivia asked, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Michael glanced at the wallet, momentarily flustered. "Force of habit," he said, quickly tucking the photo away. "It doesn't mean anything." But Olivia had seen his hesitation. For all his promises about a future together, once the timing was right, she sometimes caught glimpses of doubt in his eyes. Moments when he seemed to compare her to the wife he claimed no longer understood his ambitions. "We should establish our story for tonight," she said, changing the subject. "Who approaches whom? How much do we interact?" "We've been over this," Michael replied, checking his watch, an expensive anniversary gift from Emma he still wore. "You're there as Callahan Group's representative. I'm there as their financial advisor. We maintain professional distance in public." "And afterward?" she pressed. "We meet back here," he said, finally looking at her. "But I can't stay the night." Emma's been asking questions lately. The mention of his wife's name soured Olivia's mood. She'd stalked Emma's professional profile online enough to know the woman was accomplished in her own right, recently appointed to some healthcare board, and completing an MBA with honors. It irritated Olivia that Michael rarely acknowledged his wife's success, instead painting her as unsupportive of his career. The few times they'd been in the same room, Emma had struck Olivia as perceptive and self-assured, rather than the neglectful spouse Michael described. "Fine," Olivia conceded. "But I want you to introduce me to James Callahan tonight. If I'm going to advance at the company, I need face time with the CEO." Michael nodded absently, his attention already shifting to his phone as another message came through. Olivia glimpsed Emma's name on the screen before he turned away. Across town, Emma finished applying her makeup with steady hands, despite the anxiety building in her chest. The golden dress fit perfectly, accentuating her figure without seeking attention. She had styled her hair in an elegant updo, wearing the pearl earrings her grandmother had given her. A woman who had taught Emma that dignity was non-negotiable. Her phone chimed with a message from Michael. "Working late tonight? Don't wait up." The familiar lie no longer hurt as it once had. Instead, it strengthened her resolve. She typed back a simple "okay" and continued preparing. When her doorbell rang, Emma grabbed her clutch and opened the door to find Sophia waiting. "Your chariot awaits, Cinderella," Sophia said, embracing her friend. "Though in this version you're not running from the ball, you're crashing it." "I'm not crashing," Emma corrected her. "I was invited. My husband simply failed to inform me." The drive to the Ritz-Carlton was filled with Sophia's legal advice, punctuated by reassurances. As Boston's premier divorce attorney, she had seen countless women blindsided by infidelity, but she had rarely seen someone respond with Emma's calculated composure. "Remember," Sophia said as they pulled up to the hotel, "this isn't about causing a scene. It's about reclaiming your place." "I know exactly what this is about," Emma replied, her voice calm but determined. "I'm not there to confront Michael or his marketing director. I'm there because Dr. Roberts wants me on the hospital board, and half the board members will be attending tonight. And the fact that your cheating husband will be there with his mistress is just a coincidence?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. Emma allowed herself a small smile. "A convenient one." At the entrance to the summit, Emma presented her invitation. The young man at registration frowned as he checked his list. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harrington, but it seems your name was removed from the guest list," he said apologetically. "Your husband is already checked in." Emma had anticipated this. "There must be some mistake," she said calmly, her voice carrying just enough to attract the attention of nearby guests. "Perhaps you could check with the event coordinator, Dr. Elizabeth Roberts from Boston Memorial was expecting me to attend." The mention of Dr. Roberts, a major donor and respected figure in Boston society, changed the young man's demeanor immediately. After a brief call, he returned with a VIP badge. "My apologies for the confusion, Mrs. Harrington. Dr. Roberts has personally confirmed your invitation." Emma accepted the badge with grace, aware of the curious glances from other arriving guests. As she entered the grand ballroom, she paused to survey the scene. Nearly 300 of Boston's most influential people mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, their conversations creating a steady hum of networking and deal-making. She spotted Michael immediately, his tall frame distinctive in the crowd. He stood with a small group of men near the bar, laughing at something James Callahan had said. A few feet away, clearly monitoring Michael's location while pretending to be engaged in her own conversation, stood a woman in a striking red dress, Olivia Mercer. Emma took a deep breath and made her way not toward her husband, but toward a group of hospital board members gathered near the stage. Dr. Roberts, a commanding woman in her 60s, broke into a wide smile upon seeing her. "Emma, I'm delighted you reconsidered my offer," she said, embracing Emma warmly. "Let me introduce you to everyone." As Emma was welcomed into the circle of healthcare leaders, she felt a sense of belonging that had nothing to do with being Michael Harrington's wife. These were people who knew her work, respected her contributions, and saw her potential. For the first time in months, she felt fully visible. Across the room, Michael's laugh suddenly faltered as he caught sight of his wife deep in conversation with Boston Memorial's leadership team. He nearly spilled his drink, earning curious glances from his colleagues. "Everything all right, Harrington?" James Callahan asked, following Michael's gaze. "Ah, is that your wife, the healthcare specialist? You didn't mention she was joining us tonight." Michael struggled to find words. There must have been a miscommunication. As if sensing the disruption to her plans, Olivia glanced in the same direction and froze. The woman in the golden dress was unmistakably Emma Harrington, looking not like a scorned wife, but like someone who belonged exactly where she was, commanding attention without demanding it, her elegant presence a stark contrast to Olivia's calculated display. That moment, as conversations continued around them, three people stood frozen in a triangle of unspoken truths, each realizing that the carefully constructed narratives they'd been living were about to collide. The summit ballroom hummed with power and prestige as Michael excused himself from his business associates, his composed exterior betraying none of the panic rising within him. He made his way toward Emma, weaving through Boston's elite with practiced charm, nodding at familiar faces while his mind raced through possible explanations for his wife's unexpected appearance. Emma saw him approaching but continued her conversation with Dr. Roberts about the hospital's new community outreach program. She felt a strange calm, as though she were watching the scene unfold from above rather than living it. "Emma," Michael said as he reached her circle, his voice carefully modulated to hide his surprise, "I didn't realize you were coming tonight." He leaned in to kiss her cheek, a performance of affection for their audience. "Didn't you get my message?" Emma replied with equal poise, accepting the kiss while maintaining a slight distance. "When you mentioned the summit last week, I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to connect with the hospital board." The subtle emphasis on "when you" mentioned highlighted his omission of a formal invitation. Dr. Roberts beamed, oblivious to the undercurrents. "Michael, your wife is brilliant. She's just agreed to chair our new strategic initiative connecting Boston's financial institutions with healthcare accessibility programs. In fact, we were hoping to get your firm involved as well." Michael's smile flickered momentarily as he processed this information. Emma had never mentioned this opportunity. "That sounds wonderful," he managed. Emma has always been passionate about her work. "Speaking of passion projects," Emma said smoothly, "isn't that Olivia Mercer from the Callahan account? I believe you mentioned she's been instrumental in their recent marketing campaign." She gestured toward Olivia, who had been hovering at the periphery of their conversation, clearly trying to assess the situation. Michael paled slightly. "Yes, that's her. Excuse me, I should check on a few other clients." He retreated hastily, leaving Emma with a strengthened position among the board members, who immediately resumed their conversation about healthcare innovation. Across the room, Olivia watched the exchange with growing unease. This was not the neglectful, career-hindering wife Michael had described. Emma appeared confident, well-connected, and, most disturbingly, completely aware of what was happening. When Michael reached her, Olivia immediately pulled him toward a quieter corner. "What is she doing here?" Olivia hissed. "You said she never attends these events." "She doesn't. She didn't," Michael stammered. "Something's changed. She's acting different." "Different how? Like she knows about us?" Olivia's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby guests. "Keep your voice down," Michael warned, his own composure slipping. "We need to stick to the plan. Act professional. This changes nothing." But his words lacked conviction. Olivia could see it in his eyes. The calculation, the reassessment of risks. She had gambled everything on Michael's promises, the promotions he'd helped her secure, the lifestyle she'd begun to build, the future he'd painted for them once he found the right time to leave his marriage. "I'm going to mingle," she declared, downing her champagne. "Your wife isn't the only one with connections." She strode toward James Callahan with determined steps, leaving Michael caught between his parallel lives. As the evening progressed, Emma moved through the ballroom with natural grace, reconnecting with colleagues and forming new alliances. She discovered that many people had wondered about her absence from previous events, having heard so much about her work from mutual acquaintances. The narrative Michael had constructed, of a wife uninvolved in his professional world, crumbled with each meaningful conversation she had. In the ladies' room, Emma found herself at the sink next to Caroline Walsh, who had inadvertently revealed Michael's betrayal through her Instagram post. "Emma! It's been ages!" Caroline exclaimed, genuine warmth in her voice. "I was just telling Patricia how much we've missed you at these functions." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Especially with some of the interesting company your husband has been keeping lately." Emma met Caroline's gaze in the mirror. "Life gets busy, but I've realized some things are worth making time for." Caroline nodded, understanding the subtext. "Well, between us, that Mercer woman has been quite the topic of conversation, rather transparent in her ambitions, wouldn't you say? The board at Callahan is growing tired of her constant self-promotion on social media. James mentioned just last week that she's taking credit for strategies she had minimal involvement in." "How interesting," Emma replied, applying a fresh coat of lipstick. "I've always believed that authentic work speaks for itself." When they returned to the ballroom, Emma noticed Olivia attempting to dominate a conversation with several Callahan board members, her voice carrying as she claimed credit for marketing strategies Emma knew had been developed by the firm's senior team. "That campaign was actually my concept," Olivia was saying, her red dress drawing attention with every animated gesture. "I told Michael we needed a more aggressive approach, and the numbers prove I was right." One of the older board members caught Emma's eye and gave a subtle eye roll. Emma responded with a small, knowing smile before moving on to join another group. Meanwhile, Michael had been cornered on the terrace by James Callahan himself, who was speaking in uncharacteristically serious tones. "Harrington, we need to clear something up," Callahan said, swirling his scotch. "Your associate, Ms. Mercer, has been making some concerning claims about her role in our account. She's also been quite visible with you at several events where my wife tells me Emma was notably absent." Michael felt sweat forming at his temples despite the cool evening air. "James, I can explain—" "No need," Callahan interrupted. "Your personal affairs are your business, but I've known Emma for years through her hospital work. She's respected in circles you and I are still trying to access." He took a sip of his drink before continuing. "The merger we've been discussing with Boston Memorial, Emma's strategic planning committee will have significant input on which financial partners they select." The implication was clear. Michael's professional future, the very accounts he had used to justify his long hours away from home, now potentially rested in his wife's hands. "I understand," Michael said quietly. "Do you?" Callahan asked. "Because from where I stand, you've been risking a lot for very little return. That woman in red isn't half the asset to your life that your wife is." As Michael returned to the ballroom, his perspective shifted dramatically. He observed Emma engaged in animated conversation with the CEO of Boston's largest hospital network. Her golden dress caught the light as she laughed genuinely at something he said. Nearby, Olivia was becoming increasingly loud, her networking, growing more desperate as the evening progressed and fewer people engaged with her. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Emma belonged in this world in a way Olivia was still struggling to achieve, in a way he himself had achieved largely through connections Emma had helped him build early in his career, a fact he had conveniently forgotten as his success grew. Fear sensing his gaze, Emma looked up and met his eyes across the room. There was no anger there, no jealousy or hurt, only a calm certainty that cut him more deeply than any accusation could have. She knew her worth, even if he had forgotten it. The evening reached its pinnacle when Dr. Roberts clinked her glass for attention, gathering everyone for the announcement of the hospital's new initiatives. Michael watched as Emma was invited to join the small group on stage, her name called to applause as the newly appointed chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. Mrs. Harrington brings unique expertise at the intersection of healthcare administration and financial stewardship, Dr. Roberts announced. Her recent MBA thesis on sustainable healthcare funding models has already attracted attention from policymakers in Washington. Michael felt a stab of shame. He hadn't attended Emma's graduation ceremony, claiming an important client meeting, a meeting that had actually been a weekend with Olivia in New York. He hadn't even read the thesis Emma had worked on for months, often late into the night after full days at the hospital. Across the room, Olivia was growing visibly agitated, having consumed several glasses of champagne. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to a startled waiter. "I should be up there networking with the board, not watching some housewife play businesswoman." A woman nearby overheard and turned with raised eyebrows. "That housewife has a master's from Harvard and just secured a $1 million grant for pediatric care in underserved communities. What exactly have you accomplished lately, dear?" Olivia's face flushed with embarrassment as several people around her failed to hide their smirks. She scanned the room for Michael, only to find him watching Emma on stage, an unfamiliar expression on his face, something between regret and revelation. As Emma concluded her brief remarks to enthusiastic applause, the room shifted in a subtle but unmistakable way. Power, respect, and social capital realigned, flowing toward the woman in gold and away from the desperate figure in red. Michael felt it too, the ground beneath his carefully constructed narrative crumbling away, revealing the hollow foundation upon which he had built his betrayal. As the formal presentations concluded, the summit transitioned into its networking phase. Guests moved between elegant cocktail tables, business cards exchanged with practiced precision beneath crystal chandeliers. Emma found herself surrounded by a steady stream of colleagues and new connections, her position on the hospital board opening doors that had always been theoretically available to her, but practically closed by her own hesitation to fully occupy her professional space. Michael observed from a distance, nursing a scotch he barely tasted. The man who had arrived that evening, confident in his ability to compartmentalize his double life, now found himself adrift between worlds that were rapidly reconfiguring without his control. "She's quite remarkable, your wife," said a voice beside him. Michael turned to find Patricia Callahan, James's wife, and a significant philanthropist in Boston's social circles. "I've always wondered why we see so little of her at these functions." Michael cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Emma's always been dedicated to her work." "As she should be," Patricia replied, her tone pointed, "though I find it curious that someone so accomplished is often described by you as unsupportive of your career. That doesn't align with the woman I've been watching tonight." Before Michael could formulate a response, a commotion near the bar drew everyone's attention. Olivia, visibly intoxicated, had raised her voice while speaking to a group of uncomfortable-looking executives. "You all act so impressed with Emma Harrington," she was saying, her words slightly slurred. "If you knew what her perfect marriage really looked like, you might not be so quick to put her on a pedestal." The room quieted as heads turned toward the scene. Michael moved quickly to intervene, but Emma was faster, approaching with composed dignity. "Olivia," Emma said calmly, "perhaps you'd like some fresh air. The terrace is lovely this time of evening." Olivia turned, swaying slightly. "Don't patronize." "Me?" she snapped. You don't get to act superior when your husband has been with me for months while you were too busy with your precious career to notice." A collective intake of breath swept through the nearby guests. Emma remained perfectly still, her expression unchanged. "I noticed," she said quietly, her voice somehow carrying through the hushed room. "I simply chose not to make it the center of my existence." Michael stepped between them. "Olivia, that's enough. This isn't the place." "Where is the place, Michael?" Olivia demanded, tears forming in her eyes. "When were you going to tell everyone about us? About our plans?" She turned to the stunned onlookers. "He's leaving her for me. We're moving to Chicago when he takes over the Midwest Division. Tell them, Michael." The silence that followed was deafening. Michael stood frozen, the lies he had told each woman about the other collapsing around him. "Chicago?" Emma asked, genuine surprise in her voice. "There is no Midwest Division, Olivia. Harrington Financial is a Boston firm with a single satellite office in Providence." She turned to Michael, her eyes questioning. "Unless there's another expansion I haven't been informed about." Michael couldn't meet her gaze. "There's no Chicago office," he admitted quietly. Olivia's expression shifted from confusion to dawning horror. "But you said the condo we looked at online, the job you promised at the Chicago branch of Callahan." James Callahan stepped forward. "We have no plans for a Chicago branch, Ms. Mercer. And after tonight's display, I think it's best if you take a leave of absence from our Boston office effective immediately." Security personnel appeared discreetly at James's signal, escorting a now sobbing Olivia toward the exit. The room buzzed with whispers as guests pretended to return to their conversations while straining to hear the exchange between Emma and Michael. "We should talk," Michael said, his voice low. "Not here." Emma nodded once. "The garden terrace, 5 minutes." As she walked away, Dr. Roberts intercepted her with concern, evident on her face. "Emma, dear, if you need to leave—" "I'm fine," Emma assured her. "This evening is too important to let personal matters interfere. I believe you were about to introduce me to Senator Mitchell regarding the Pediatric Care Initiative." Dr. Roberts studied Emma's composed features with admiration before nodding. "Of course. He's been eager to meet you." On the terrace 5 minutes later, Michael found Emma gazing out at the Boston skyline, her golden dress catching the light from the garden lanterns. She looked ethereal and somehow unreachable. "How long have you known?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Does it matter?" Emma turned to face him. "Months, Michael. I've known for months. Why didn't you say anything, confront me, throw me out?" The questions tumbled out as he struggled to understand her composure. Emma's laugh held no humor. "And play the role of the hysterical, betrayed wife? Create a spectacle for your colleagues to gossip about?" She shook her head. "That was never going to be my story." "Our story," Michael corrected automatically. "No," Emma said firmly. "You chose your story when you started lying to me. I chose mine when I decided not to let your choices define me." She reached into her clutch and removed a small flash drive. "Everything is here. The hotel receipts, the credit card statements, the text messages. I have copies, of course. My lawyer has copies too." Michael stared at the drive. "Your lawyer?" "Sophia has been very thorough," Emma confirmed. "I didn't come here tonight to create a scene or to win you back, Michael. I came to show myself, and you exactly what you've been risking." She gestured toward the ballroom where Boston's elite continued their evening. "These connections, this respect, this life we built together." "Are you leaving me?" Michael asked, the reality of his situation finally hitting him with full force. Emma studied him, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time in months. The man she had fallen in love with was still visible beneath the layers of deception and ambition, but dimmer now, faded by compromise. "That depends," she said finally. "I'm not interested in ultimatums or dramatic reconciliations. I won't be competing for your attention or your loyalty. Those should be given freely or not at all." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I know my worth now, Michael. If you want to be part of my life, You'll need to rediscover yours beyond the lies you've been living. She outlined her terms with the same precision she used in hospital board meetings: complete transparency, couples therapy, individual counseling for Michael to address whatever had driven him to seek validation through deception. No contact with Olivia. A renewal of their partnership in every sense: professional, personal, emotional. And if I can't meet these terms, Michael asked, his voice barely audible. Then we'll divide our assets equitably and move forward separately, Emma replied, without hesitation. I've built a life that doesn't depend on your presence in it, Michael. Staying with me needs to be a choice you make every day, not a default you fall back on when other options disappoint you. The weeks that followed the summit became a period of reconstruction. Michael, shaken by the public unraveling of his deceptions and the professional consequences that followed, began the humbling process of rebuilding trust. He started therapy, confronting the insecurities that had driven him to seek validation through Olivia's adoration rather than earning Emma's continued respect. Emma moved into the guest bedroom of their Beacon Hill home, maintaining a careful distance while observing Michael's efforts with cautious optimism. She flourished in her new role on the hospital board, her innovative approaches to healthcare accessibility earning recognition from industry leaders. Olivia left Boston shortly. After the summit, her professional reputation tarnished by her public display. The carefully curated social media presence that had once showcased her apparent success now stood abandoned, a digital ghost town of hollow achievements. 3 months after that fateful evening, Emma and Michael sat across from their therapist in what had become a weekly ritual of honest communication. I've been offered the Chicago position, Michael said, meeting Emma's surprised gaze. A real one this time. Callahan is actually expanding, and James wants me to establish their Midwest presence. Congratulations, Emma said sincerely. That's a significant opportunity. I turned it down, Michael replied, not because of what happened with Olivia, but because my priority is rebuilding what matters most. He hesitated before adding, but I'd reconsider if it was something we decided to pursue together. Your healthcare expertise would be valuable in Chicago, too. Their therapist smiled slightly. This is the first time you've presented a career decision as a mutual choice, rather than a foregone conclusion, Michael. That's progress. Emma felt something shift between them, not a return to what had been, but perhaps the beginning of something more authentic than they had allowed themselves before. 2 months later, they stood together on the Cape Cod beach near their summer home, the December air crisp and clean. No witnesses surrounded them, except the endless Atlantic and the gulls circling overhead. Emma wore a simple cream dress, Michael a casual suit with no tie. Their hands were joined as they faced each other on the sand, where they had once dreamed about their future together. I don't promise perfection, Michael said, his voice carrying over the sound of breaking waves, but I promise presence. Real presence, not just physical occupation of the same space. I promise to see you, to hear you, to grow alongside you rather than away from you. Emma's response wasn't forgiveness in the traditional sense, but acknowledgement of their shared journey forward. I promise to occupy my full space in this relationship and to allow you to occupy yours, to build something together that honors both our individual paths and our shared one. They exchanged simple bands to replace the ornate ones they had returned to the jeweler, a mutual decision to begin again with symbols that represented substance over appearance. As they walked back toward the house, Michael asked, "Do you think we would have found our way here without everything that happened?" Emma considered this as she watched the winter sun glinting off the water. "I think sometimes we need to lose our way completely before we can choose our path deliberately." 6 months after the summit, Emma stood at a podium accepting an award for her community healthcare initiative. Michael sat in the audience genuinely proud, no longer measuring her success against his own. Later that night, as they shared a quiet dinner, Emma reached across the table to take his hand. "I'm pregnant," she said simply. The joy that spread across Michael's face was unguarded and real, the face of the man she had first fallen in love with, now tempered by hard-earned wisdom. "We're going to need a bigger place," he said after a moment. "The brownstone doesn't have enough room for a proper nursery." Emma smiled. I was thinking about Cape Cod, actually, full-time. The hospital board has approved my remote work proposal, and you've been talking about opening your own boutique firm. A fresh start, Michael nodded, understanding. Away from the ghosts? In Boston. Not running from ghosts, Emma corrected him. Building something new because we choose to, not because we're escaping the past. As they discussed their future that evening, neither pretended the journey had been easy, or that trust had been fully restored. But they had learned that real love wasn't found in grand gestures or perfect appearances. It existed in the daily choice to see each other clearly, to honor each other's growth, and to build something authentic together, even when that meant dismantling everything they thought they knew and beginning again from truth. Dear listeners, we hope Emma and Michael's journey of rediscovery and renewal has touched your hearts. Their story reminds us that sometimes we must lose our way completely before finding our authentic path forward. If you found yourself invested in their struggles and triumphs, please subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the complex terrain of human relationships. Click the like button if you believe in second chances built on honesty rather than illusion. We've created a special playlist of similar emotional journeys that you'll find linked to the left. Most importantly, we'd love to hear your thoughts. In the comments below, have you ever had to rediscover your worth within a relationship? Your experiences matter to our community of